Hi, everybody. I wanted to give you a quick run through of the media and politics syllabus for our summer course. I will try to keep this to a relatively brief video, which means that some of the things I'm not going to talk about, but there are other videos on our Blackboard course that will cover those topics more in depth. So let's start by getting our syllabus open here. Okay. This is a summer class. You can see all of the various cross listings of it. And note that it is an online only class, so we will not be meeting in person during this summer. This is 4 weeks, so it is relatively quick moving, but I think that if you stay on top of the coursework and the readings, it should be totally doable to make it through the class and have a really good semester together. You can see my contact information under the instructor name section. I would suggest using email to reach me. That's going to be the best way since I will only be on campus in Tahlequah about 1 day a week this summer. Mondays and Tuesdays will be my primary office hour days. However, if you need to contact me on Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday, feel free to email me still. I just will be not necessarily sitting right next to my computer on those days. So feel free to email me. It just might take me, 20 or 30 minutes versus 5 or 10. So this class is designed to give students an introduction to media and politics, and specifically talk about some more contemporary trends within the media and politics landscape. We are going to focus on theory, understanding theory, how we use theory to analyze political messages, and what those political messages are like in contemporary digital media contexts. So I hope that by the end of the semester you will feel more comfortable using the internet, social media, any other kinds of digital media, your phone, whatever, to engage in political discourse, to engage in civil political discourse, and that you're going to employ some critical thinking skills over the course of the semester. So you can see our student learning outcomes here. We're going to apply theories to modern political communication contexts. We're going to analyze messages as they're transmitted through mediated structures. We're going to demonstrate knowledge regarding political topics, practice civil discourse in digital contexts, utilize research to support arguments, and demonstrate knowledge of course concepts in a research-based paper. Let's talk about the instructional methods. This is a self-guided class because it is an online class. I'm here to help answer questions and guide you through the class as best I can, but ultimately you set the pace and control how you move through the material. You should try to plan enough time to cover the readings. There is at least one reading a day. I've tried really hard to limit the readings to about 30 pages maximum. There are, I think, a couple of days where the page limit exceeds that. But really should be doable. There's lots of optional readings so that way if you have a topic that you're interested in and you want to dive deeper into it, you can. But the readings are clearly marked what's mandatory and what's optional. In addition to readings, I try to include as many different multimedia experiences as we can, lectures that I have filmed, lectures your students, your co-classmates have filmed, YouTube videos, blogs, websites, social media profiles, lots of different content to try to make this class more engaging for you. Another form of the learning experience, kind of the instructional strategies I have, are discussion boards. One of the best ways to understand material is to discuss it with your classmates and really dive into that. So your discussion boards are one of the places for you to do this. I do consider these to be a fairly important part of the learning process. So you need to make sure that you've read the material beforehand, and that you are going to post one, 250 word minimum post that responds to the prompt I've given you. And then you're going to engage in discourse with your classmates, at least 3 of them, each day that a discussion board is due. So this is pretty standard, but I want you to, really try to dive into that. Don't just give me an I agree or sounds good or great job, but like challenge something, ask a question back, make a connection to something else. These discussion boards are worth 25 points each. There will be 5 of them throughout the course of the semester. In addition to that, our last instructional strategy is a guest lecture. So graduate students are going to actually film these guest lectures. They'll pick a topic and read the readings, do a brief summary of that, post the video to Blackboard, and these should be helpful tools that help the rest of the class understand the material even better. I'm going to talk about that further in the guest lecture video that is listed with the assignment instructions on Blackboard. So if you have other questions, just go seek that video. So these are the kind of, the assignments for the class, the assessment methods. The first one is a Twitter takeaway. So this is a class that focuses on digital media trends and contemporary media trends. And Twitter is a place for people to talk about politics together online. You will then, because of that, be asked to submit 5 different tweets over the course of the semester about the course materials. My hope is that you'll use this as an opportunity to practice using Twitter, because you never know when somebody's going to say, hey, social media because you're a millennial or whatever. Why don't you do this? So you need to know how to use it. You need to know how to engage with your other classmates that way. And again, practice that kind of civil discourse. And it's just, again, another way to do something that's a little bit more engaging outside of Blackboard. Your Twitter takeaways are only worth 5 points, so I don't expect the same level of depth or effort to go into a Twitter takeaway as I do a blog or a discussion board. But, make sure you've read the assignment material beforehand. You also need to make sure that you're using our course hashtag NSUCommNP anytime you post a tweet. My last note about the Twitter takeaways is that if you're going to, you're welcome to create your own fake account or whatever, create a secondary account that's just for class. I strongly suggest that if you don't want to use your own personal account. If you do use, regardless of which account you use, your school account or your public account, your personal account, you have to make sure that your tweets are set to public, because otherwise we won't be able to see them. All right. So the next thing is that you will have several blog posts over the course of the semester. The blog posts are going to be created and written in a blog format outside of Blackboard. Those of you who have taken classes with me in the past, specifically the Challenges in Interpersonal Communication class, I have you do journal posts. This is the same thing. You're going to create a website. It's going to be an opportunity for you to showcase your creativity, your voice, in a way that is not through the stale confines of Blackboard. So make sure that you give yourself some time. You'll have a full week before any blog post is due to create your website. There are instructions on Blackboard about how to do that, as well as some sample posts. And then each prompt for each of the 4 for undergrads, 5 for graduates, there will be a separate prompt for each blog post. You'll post it to your website and submit the assignment link on Blackboard to let me know you've done it. I really can't stress enough how awesome these blog posts are. You guys are so creative there. You seem to really just open up in ways that you never get through Blackboard. And so again, this is another way for you to practice using technology to communicate, to research, to talk about your research, to work through the course materials. It's just another way for you to do that. You'll have a couple of other assignments, and I'm not going to run through each of them specifically because they will all have their own assignment instructions and videos that talk about that. And just for time's sake, so this video doesn't get to be too long. But note that you'll have an assignment that asks you to create a YouTube playlist, which features clips of biased news coverage. It should be depressing and exciting. You'll have an assignment where you have to find an online petition and apply a specific theory from class to that online petition, explaining how they relate to each other. You'll have an assignment where at the beginning of the semester where you're asked to summarize a topic related to politics, and you'll also be asked to conduct research on that topic. And in that research process, you're going to do what's called an annotated bibliography. So this is a reference sheet that has notes underneath each citation, and those notes explain what the source says and what you're taking away from it. There's samples provided. It's a really cool activity. I love that as well. You're going to be asked to write 2 papers of sorts, kind of more of your traditional papers for this class. The first one is the case study. This is where you're going to identify a political figure, a political person, someone involved in politics, and do an evaluation of their strategies, their rhetorical strategies. So like, what were they trying to accomplish? What did they say? But you're going to focus on how they're using digital media to communicate. I think a kind of primary or a good example that comes to mind, you don't have to use this person, would be AOC in New York. Another person could be, this is a little bit dated, but Barack Obama was one of the first candidates to really use social media and email technologies effectively. So you've got some different kinds of samples there that you can use, some different examples. You'll write a paper about that. Again, there will be more description of that assignment on Blackboard on its assignment. And then the last project for the class, the last thing to evaluate is actually your final paper. For undergraduates, that's a strategic plan. For graduate students, it's a research proposal. Both of these are worth 100 points. Both of them should be based on materials and reference materials that you've learned through the class. Both of them should be also focused on a contemporary person or a contemporary topic. But again, this is kind of where you're culminating your way through to this paper this semester. So if you have more questions about that, go seek out those assignment instructions, read through the syllabus, watch my videos on that. But just for time's sake, I'm going to skip through to our next section on the syllabus here. There's no required textbook. However, I have posted several PDFs to Blackboard. Please make note, you do not have to read every single PDF that I have posted, but it's there for you. Some of them are optional. Now, I do want you to read the ones that are listed in the syllabus, not with the optional tag. Those are required readings. But I've just given you extra information for those of you who want to dive deeper. You've got a grading scale here you can see. I have 2 columns. One is for undergraduates and one is for graduates. Because there are just a couple of assignments that undergraduates don't have to do. There's an extra blog post for graduate students, and grad students are asked to do the guest lecture, as I mentioned earlier. I have calculated what your letter grades will be based on the number of points possible for the class. Make sure that you are looking at points earned, not your percentage on Blackboard's Grade Center. Blackboard's Grade Center is not an accurate depiction of where you're at in the class. A quick note about my grading policy in terms of how I evaluate. I think of a C as average work, a B is pretty good work, and an A is really good, exceptional work. It is not impossible to earn an A in my class. I have several students that earn A's every time I teach a class, but you have to do more than just the bare minimum, okay? My last note about grades is that I'm happy to talk about grades with you anytime you have a question. I just ask that you wait 24 hours from the time the grade is given to the time that you email me to ask about that. This gives us time to sleep on things, for you to read over my feedback, to try to take that into consideration as you're thinking about, what the concern or question is. All right, let's talk about my email policy. This email policy is ridiculous, I'm sorry, but it is born out of necessity. I receive hundreds of emails a day, and my priority is to try to get to the emails that are like most important for students. But sometimes I get emails for stuff that students could just find on their own. So go back and read the syllabus. Go back and read the assignment instructions. Pay attention to the details there. You'd be shocked at how many emails I get that's like, when's this thing due? Oh, there is a whole course calendar, friend, all about the due dates. And the due dates are listed in the assignment instructions. So, just doing those things, kind of following this checklist here helps me respond to you more quickly. I have another note. We'll actually skip down here. If you want to email me and I haven't responded, or if you have a quick question that really shouldn't take more than just a couple of seconds, you're also welcome to join our class group me and reach out to me there. As I mentioned in my intro video, my daughter is going to be home with me full-time this summer. She does actually need my attention sometimes during the day. I know, go figure. So there are times that I'm not sitting directly in front of the computer, but I have my phone, and so if you text me through the group me, I can respond back to you if it's a pretty simple question, or if not, it will direct me to go to the computer to take care of something else that you might have a question or concern about. You can see the link for it here. If you have not been on Blackboard before, or if you're not super familiar with Blackboard, I'm going to really strongly encourage that you spend some time getting to know Blackboard, navigating around, clicking around, figuring things out, because you do have to do everything through Blackboard for this class. This is not a face-to-face traditional class. It is an online class. That does not mean that you are not still required to be in attendance. You should be checking in every day. There is a reading and an assignment due every day of the class. It makes it important for you to be present. If you don't check in during the first week of class, I may have to administratively withdraw you from the course just so that you are not, your grade can be salvaged for the class. So anyway, just check in, be there. My last thing that I want to talk about is your late work. Because this is a short class, because it moves fast, I do not need to give you approval to submit late work. I repeat, I do not need to give you approval to submit late work. So save yourself the trouble and the time of emailing me to ask if you can turn something in late. You are an adult and you can just do that, and that's totally fine with me. However, each day that something is late, 10% of the points possible for it will be taken off. So make sure you're sticking to those deadlines. It is also going to help you not get overwhelmed with a short course. Everything, any late work has to be turned in no later than 11:59 p.m. on Monday, July 1st. If I'm going to calculate it into your final grade, that's it. That's the absolute final deadline. So in terms of plagiarism, please don't plagiarize. There are some guidelines on when you might run into some trouble areas. You can see the contact information for technical support. Our help desk is wonderful. They're very quick to respond. There's also some policies and important information that you can read further about. Quick note on Title IX. I'm a mandatory reporter. I'm more than happy to listen to you, to give you access to support, resources, whatever I can do. But if you do tell me something about you or somebody else who's been harassed, assaulted, stalked, anything that falls under the Title IX criteria, I do have to report that to our Title IX officer. I'll do my best to keep that information private for you, but I do have to report it. All right, let's look at the course calendar quickly. Excuse me. So I've got the course calendar. It's broken down into date, discussion topic, any assignments that are due that day, and what's assigned to read. So you can see that we start out with like just a course policy day, but then we immediately start into our first full unit for the class. We're going to spend the rest of our first week talking about traditional political media theories. You can see anytime that there is something due, it's going to be in this assignment tab or column here. And then your readings are listed over here. Take note that if something is not in italics, it is a mandatory required reading. So for day 2, you will have to read the Schäufele article and the McCombs and Shaw article. You have the option, if you're really digging framing and agenda setting, you have the option to then read this optional Entman article. And this continues every day for the rest of the semester. But yeah, so I just want to make that very, very, very clear to you. Optional means you don't have to read it, but you are welcome to read it because it will help enrich your experience. We've got some pretty traditional topics to talk about here: framing and agenda setting, news coverage and bias. This refers to ideological bias, so like conservative or liberal. We're going to talk about image repair strategies, what happens when politicians do bad deeds, how do they, make up for that. Audience theories, specifically including encoding and decoding. Our second unit is going to transition into talking about some of these more contemporary trends, including women in politics and how they're using digital media. This starts with an overview of prominent women in the U.S. political system. We'll then talk about what some just basic gendered stereotypes are, especially with regards to women in politics. After that, we will talk about the double bind and biased coverage. The double bind, most notoriously, I think, would Hillary Clinton is like a prime case study of this. Someone who is deemed too masculine to be likable, too feminine to be taken seriously, something to that extent, and how the double bind influences biased news coverage. Biased news coverage here refers to gender stereotypes. We'll talk a little bit about a couple of feminist theories, standpoint theory, and performativity, because these relate to how women interact and engage in political discourse. After that, we're halfway through the course. We're moving on to state and local politics. We will talk about state and local elections and some trends at the state level. We're going to be focusing a lot of our reading and discussion this part of the course on the Oklahoma teachers walkout from last year, because it was such an important political trend, and it really began in a Facebook group. So we'll talk about that. We'll talk about trends in social media broadly in terms of how people are using it, how individuals prefer to get news, what they're doing to engage in politics. And then we'll talk a little bit more about some media theories that relate to social media. So the two-step flow theory refers to, I get information from one place and then I share that with my network elsewhere. I get information from NBC Nightly News and then I share it to my Twitter stream or my friends at work. So one step, two step. Uses and gratifications and media dependency theories are also going to be talked about. And then we'll end this state and local section with some discussion of the knowledge gap and gatekeeping. These theories are about how information is given to everybody in a society, or how it is kept from certain groups in society. Our last unit, which I'm very excited about, ends with a discussion of celebrity influence in political discourse. Celebrity influencers and celebrities in general have a bigger role in our political system than I think a lot of us want to admit or acknowledge. So we'll start first by talking about what influencers are and what that looks like in terms of what they do, who they are, how does that work. We'll talk about social media activism. This is the very brief summary recap of the class I taught last summer on social media activism. We'll also talk about social learning theory, this theory about how you learn from media and other individuals around you. And we'll end, with a brief discussion of parasocial interactions and realism, because these are important parts that relate to our relationships with celebrities and with online personalities. The last day of the class, we won't have any readings or assignments due except for your final papers. So everything is due on Blackboard by 11:59 p.m. That means if you're submitting it elsewhere, let's say you're uploading a video to YouTube or you're sending a tweet, you have to give yourself enough time to do that on that external website and then still submit the assignment through Blackboard before midnight. I think this is pretty straightforward. If you have questions about assignment due dates, again, I suggest you go to the course calendar first before emailing me. But hopefully this gives you an overview of the syllabus. It walks you through some of the more important parts of it. If you have any other questions or concerns, let me know. I'm happy to answer any of those questions that I can for you. All right, have a great day.